What's up, everyone? I'm Ben Laurence. Make sure to check me out right here on YouTube, but for now, you're watching The Variant Verdict. Subscribe today!
Alright, you're watching Variant Verdict, episode 12, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. My name is Josh Onimus.
Shawn Kelley.
Jack Gimbert.
Thank you for watching. I just want to shout out to my boy Ben Laurence. Check out his channel at Ben Laurence on YouTube. He's doing good stuff. And yeah, we're going to give you our opinion of this new Star Wars episode finale of the Skywalker Saga tonight.
Alright, well, I guess the best way to start it off is, so Josh, how'd you feel about it?
It stinks. No, I just think it's the most generic, probably, of the new trilogy. I felt like, okay, it's coming out, guys. This is the most generic of the new sequel trilogy, to the point where it just kind of felt like it was checking all the boxes before the end credits. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's unpredictable. Excuse me. But for the most part, it's got a little bit of pacing issues. It does a lot of stuff with characters that I think was a little less desirable than I expected, especially like the underuse, in my opinion, of Lando Calrissian, or like even something that he even had to do with the story. He just kind of like pops in like a mascot and like a cheerleader whenever he needs to.
It's fan service. He's just there to make everyone go, yay!
I know. All right, so I'm gonna say that of the new trilogy, this is probably my least favorite. I'm gonna be as bold to say that.
It's number 2, and maybe that'll change over time. We were discussing earlier, this is kind of the Game of Thrones Season 8 of the Star Wars franchise, as in Disney and JJ Abrams just kind of got it out there. They said, JJ, just get this out there. Disney Plus is coming, buddy. We got stuff to do. Let's get it out. And, we just got, you get a 2-hour and 20-minute nostalgia fest that doesn't really seem very well planned out. I mean,
yeah, I definitely would agree with the planned out statement. It just feels like they couldn't really expand on what Rian Johnson was trying to do, and J.J. Abrams raced to the finish line with like the safest possible product.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I for one liked it. I actually like this movie, and the thing about it is that I understand where you guys are coming along with pacing and how everything felt like it was very chill. Like you said, you're just checking the box and everything. This is the end. You're supposed to be checking all those boxes off to make sure everything is tidied up. Like, we're not wanting to be left with other questions to go on. And so we need everything to wrap up. So this is the ending.
All right. So we all have our opinions on it. Now that they're said, let's kind of go into the story of this movie. This is where the spoilers are going to come in.
Yeah, so
and we're going to kind of give you like what we thought of certain elements of the film and how it plays out.
Yeah, so if you have not seen this yet, if you have, just don't watch it from this point forward. If you have not seen this yet, this is now the spoiler section.
So let's talk about where the movie starts. Exactly where the trailer starts is you go into the Sith temple.
Yeah.
On what was the planet called? Zoladul? I can't remember.
Exegol.
Yeah.
So you go into the throne room.
Exegol. I want to make sure, because if people watch this, they're going to correct me.
Yeah. So if you've seen the trailer, you know that Palpatine's back. And they don't shy away from it. The opening scene is Kylo goes down and sees he sees the Emperor.
Yeah.
And they kind of just get that out of the way immediately, which feels like something that should have been built up to, but I guess they put it in the trailer because they were opening with it. But
the Emperor doesn't really show up.
That seems like something that would have been like a cool, like, maybe end of the first act exposition where you're like, oh, the Emperor's back, this is neat. But I mean,
he's already like a direct threat to the Resistance at the start of the film. The opening crawl lets you know that, they're picking up like Resistance, like picking up signals.
It's like you already know where it's going. It's be like, okay, so it's gonna get to the end, and Badman is gonna have to have an ultimate fight with Rey or Kylo, and then Rey or Kylo is gonna triumph. Emperor dies. End of movie.
Like, we all knew who went into this movie thinking that the end was gonna have the Emperor die. I mean, Obviously,
I don't
everyone
know.
thought about that going into it, about how did he survive before, which had all been explained before.
It begs the question, like, was it just thrown in there because they couldn't figure out how to expand on what they did with Episode 8 or where to go after Snoke died? I'm not sure if JJ had planned on using Snoke as, like, the long-term villain, and he kind of threw a wrench in his plan when Ryan killed him off.
Yeah.
And JJ had to do, like, recovery on this film, double duty, to, like, make it good in time for the time of its release date, production-wise. It feels like you're either on board for the fact that the Emperor survived. I think it takes a little bit of the stakes of Return of the Jedi away when the rebellion basically didn't take down the Empire. We learned in Mandalorian 5 years later there's squads of stormtroopers. They're very much still a big threat. We know Force Awakens, we have the First Order fully developed and they're an army.
They're like
it undercuts a little bit
They're
of
like
what...
modern day neo-Nazis. They're just
Well,
like
yeah, I was
everywhere.
about to say.
But to me, it undercuts a little bit of the victory you get from Return of the Jedi. But then once you bring back the Emperor, that's like the ultimate death caused by Anakin. It undercuts it almost completely. Like, the movie doesn't need to exist because all those events kind of didn't stop anything or prevent anything. And
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Well, even just from Force Awakens alone, you can already tell that wasn't the case. That was this case because it. Granted, at that time we didn't realize it was the Emperor. It really in the back pulling all the strings, but we had it a literal copy of the Empire in the First Order. From the very first one. So ultimately, his death would have meant nothing either way, right when you watch Force Awakens. So having it feel like it meant nothing now because he was alive at this point.
Okay. And at the time that they show, Kylo has his confrontation with the Emperor very early on in the film. He goes down there and he enters like this Sith cave via elevator, if you've seen the clip. When he arrives at the bottom, they have this cutaway where it's like kind of tracking towards where the Emperor's standing. You see a tank full of Snoke bodies like piled up.
Yeah.
Like, so he like apparently, I guess that's like the only way they can say it without using dialogue, that like he cloned Snoke apparently, like controlled him like a puppet.
Yeah.
Does it, I don't know. It feels,
Ever
I
since-
smell damage control.
It's ever since ultimately what it was is ever since the Empire fell, the Emperor went into hiding, rebuilt himself over years. Not like he just all of a sudden did this over like a 2-year period. There's a 30-year time gap between Jedi and this. Not Rise, but
Rise
Force
of Skywalker.
Awakens.
Oh,
No,
okay.
like there's a 30-year time. So you're talking 30 years plus the time of all that. Yeah, maybe he can build an army with a shit ton of
But
clones.
we want to know, how did the First Order come to be? That's a question
They
haven't
actually,
even answered.
they never addressed it in the movie, but it's actually a thing where I don't know the true story, but I know that General Hux and his father are supposedly the ones who really started it. And like Hux ended up killing his father and trying to take over, but then Kylo steps in and then starts taking over, punking out fucking Hux like a bitch. So no wonder Hux doesn't fucking like Kylo.
Yeah, that's another
Like-
thing. Later on in the film, it's revealed that there's an infiltrator from the Resistance inside of the First Order, and it turns out to be General Hux.
Yeah.
That's a huge spoiler, but I think you guys should know that.
I mean, it made
But
sense
it was
to me.
actually one of the things I'm championing about this movie. I enjoyed that part. I actually immensely enjoyed most of the scenes with General
can't tell
Hux.
me you
He's one
like-
of my favorite things about the new trilogy.
That was like the worst scene in the movie, and you're like, when Poe and Finn and them are captured, and Hux comes and like sprays the blaster and kills all the stormtroopers.
I liked it.
He's like, get out of here, guys! And they're asking, why'd you help us? And he says, because I want Kylo Ren to lose more than I want you to win.
Which, I mean, in what I just explained, I can see his side, but I will admit, it maybe wasn't the best delivered
The
line.
execution is
Yeah,
terrible.
exactly. But then I look back at Star Wars, though, and let's take a look at it. The execution in most line delivered in a lot of the movies isn't the best.
He's been one of the like more consistently enjoyable things from like across this sequel trilogy, though. I think Domhnall Gleeson is in that role. I do agree though that like it's a little bit cheesy what they did, but he was a cool mole. I thought like it was cool that.
No,
it was
I did
him.
too. They. Well, I mean, the moment he's like, "I want to shoot them myself," I was like, "Oh, okay." We
All
saw
right,
this
so-
coming.
Before we deviate too far, our heroes are gathering intelligence to bring Leia about where they're hearing these voices that are coming over a frequency that sound exactly like Emperor Palpatine. So the Resistance are kind of like building their fortress. They're setting up their plan to get the information they need to find out where he's located. Rey follows the Jedi text. I believe from Last Jedi, she says that she's going to
Luke's
follow where
journal.
Luke left off in his journal in search of an item called the Wayfinder. Now, I only have problems with this because it just seems like a reason for our heroes to, like, just jump on a ship and, like, get into shenanigans together.
It's a MacGuffin.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. It felt like expanded universe type of canon where, like, they have, like, a Sith-powered object. In fact, like, there's a dagger that takes as also kind of a MacGuffin in the movie with Sith encryption on it, which if you've seen the trailers, C-3PO is tasked with trying to read the Sith inscription, and, yeah.
And because of old Senate laws and preventing any kind of Sith information from being spread, he can read it. He just can't tell you what it says.
Yeah,
no,
so...
But, I mean, there are things about it, sure, like you said, MacGuffins and stuff like that, but you couldn't really get through any of this without them. And
Like,
as far as the Wayfinder and the dagger, and like, is that really
back
something
to-
to complain about?
Back to the dagger, though. How about that scene when she takes the dagger out and she's like, "Oh look, there's a little secret compartment."
It
and
was
how
convenient.
convenient that I'm in the exact spot that I would need to be spaced around the Death Star, crashed in the ocean to see this picture.
Well,
She
I don't think
matches-
I don't think
she
you have to be
matches it up.
standing.
I was
That
like-
is gotta be.
I
That
saw-
is very
Well,
true.
oh wait,
I was-
but for
I was
argument's
like,
sake,
"Oh,
though,
good for you, Ray. You just happen to be in the exact same spot where the ridges of your dagger match up with this."
well, I think I don't see that she had to be standing in that exact spot. I
She
think
did.
no matter where you were, sorry, standing as long as you.
It's
now
a-
she instantly found out how to line it up.
It's a crash Death Star, Sean. She could have been on any side, but she just happened to be in the exact spot where you would need to be to line it up, where you could see the Emperor's throne room and find the Wayfinder.
But you know, when you're
This
looking
is
at
true.
things like that in perception, you could walk 10
guess it's
feet back,
fine.
20
It was
to
like
the
those
right,
things
you
like
can
the
still get
pencil,
that
the pencil
shot.
projectors
This
you use
is
in
a movie
algebra.
made for children, and I mean,
And I mean,
I
and that's
mean-
the other thing I'd like to point out. These are ultimately kids' movies. So, like,
Well,
we're
Look,
sitting
look.
here, like,
Here's where
over at it with each other over
Let's not
like,
get
something
too-
that's making
let's not get
kids.
too out of our heads. Where it goes though is all the characters inevitably have like kind of the same motive because the Emperor at one time, and this is also another beef I had with the movie. At the start on Exegol, he rises an entire Sith fleet powered with like Star Destroyers that lived in the like were burrowed beneath the surface of Exegol, and it was just it's like perfect. Like you don't even know where he had time to amass this army, and like you rarely even see from inside the ships of the people piloting them. So it just felt like kind of gobbled together.
Well, hey, if you look at it this way, if in Attack of the Clones, they were able to go ahead and whip up that clone army that size, and you give Emperor the ability of cloning in 30 plus years, yeah, you're gonna get an army that big.
But is the Emperor the one doing the dirty work?
No, he's just the one telling people to do the dirty work.
All right, no. Okay.
Like, there.
but like planet destroying technology. Oh, this is another thing. Each one of those like thousands or hundreds of thousands, however many Star Destroyers there were, each one of them is equipped with a cannon on it that can
That
blow up a
destroy
planet.
planets.
Yeah, it was a
So
little
you're
mini
telling-
Death Star cannon.
You're telling me over the course of 30 years they figure out how to miniaturize.
But he was in a mechanicalized
Look at what we
walker
do with
throughout
cell
the film.
phones.
I don't know.
The man was in a mechanicalized walker throughout the film.
It's a cool
I'm just playing.
thread. I mean,
Honestly, I like the character of Emperor Palpatine. I just think that like his thread through the movie franchise was perfect between the time he spends in the prequels and then becoming the Emperor throughout the trilogy with so much mystery, not really be fully revealed until Return of the Jedi during like the final confrontation in the throne room. I love his arc. It could have ended there is what I'm saying, because if they couldn't really write a reason to bring him back, at least it's more impactful what he lends to the story, like by being dead, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I don't know what the villain would have been when Rian Johnson killed Snoke, so I feel like this was kind of damage control that way.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, JJ had a vision, and had Rian Johnson continue it. Oops, he had Rian Johnson continue it, and like you even said yourself, the way you phrased it, or actually the way I phrased it, he literally turned everything upside down and broke rules and changed things. Now, cool. But not cool when you only have one more movie to wrap up a 9-movie series. So you have 7 movies following a consistent basis. The 8th movie, the motherfucker changes the whole shit and then you expect it all to change and work together at the end of the last movie. They had to ignore some of the shit that was happening in Last Jedi. Because, like, one thing you brought up as a complaint before this video about how at the end of Jedi they really made a point to that anyone could be one. Like, it doesn't matter about family, bloodlines, anything like that. Now, granted, they never really brought that up, but they didn't really have to. And there are things about it, like Finn showed signs of the Force. He's not a Jedi. He's anybody. He had signs of the Force. Everyone, ultimately, there were people that did. Even, what's her name, who's the one from the original Cantina? I can never remember, but she was in this one over with Leia, the alien with the football head looking one.
Oh, Mouse Kanata.
Yeah, her. She has Force attunement. She's not a Jedi. So that factor, maybe they didn't address it, that's a big factor that everybody can be a Jedi in this, but
this movie,
they never took it away.
This movie wants to... Alright, let's continue the story. We're moving on. We know a little bit about the Emperor, his motives. He creates the Sith fleet. So the heroes eventually get the Wayfinder, but I believe through the fact that Kylo actually finds the exact place where she finds the Wayfinder. He destroys it.
Yeah, when they're in the crash.
Well, we are jumping around a lot. We're missing a good chunks of bit.
We're doing our
chunks
best.
of meat. No, we are.
We're doing our best.
But one thing I want to get back to, because I feel like we're jumping gaps now.
There's a lot to cover.
There is a lot to cover. Because
We
this is
haven't
a
even gotten to
2 hour
Rey,
and
though.
20-minute movie where if you took a piss break and you were gone for 5 minutes, you missed something. So that's another warning.
Albeit it probably wasn't important to the plot because I don't really know what the plot of the movie was, but I mean that's an entirely different.
Yeah, so instead of like breaking down the movie kind of like how we have been, let's just talk about major key plot points just so that we're not just straight up telling
you guys
want to
know who is
Thank
Rey's
you.
family.
I'll have to bring that up.
So let's just reveal it here. Who is Rey's family lineage?
Wait, before we say it, who did you think it was?
It's exactly what we thought it was.
Well, it's funny because me and Jack have brought like a bunch of suggestions up in the past. I thought it would have been cooler. I don't want to say cool because it's just cooler than the actual reveal if it was Obi-Wan Kenobi, because they used Sir Alec Guinness in that part, which is she
Where you
says,
hear Rey,
you've taken your first steps to a bigger life, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. That would have been cool just because like it would have been a connection to the new sequel trilogy to Obi-Wan. But it's like I wouldn't have been that. I probably would have found something I didn't like about that too, because I don't want it to connect so heavily to the past.
Yeah.
I don't have that desire as a fan. But there's a lot of fans I get why they don't like Last Jedi. My desire for the past is like put it behind me. I'm like Kylo in Last Jedi. I said kill the past.
Yeah, and Jack.
Kill it if you have to.
Jack, so what was your prediction on Rey?
I was terribly disappointed because it's one of those things where you try to guess what's going to happen in a movie and you're like, oh, it's too easy. They're definitely not going to do that. Like, there's no way. It's way too easy. And we were discussing this like months ago when the first trailer dropped, and you see Sith Rey with the double lightsaber, and I was like, oh, she's probably going to be Palpatine's granddaughter or something. I was like, but that can't be it. That's too easy of an answer. Well.
Yeah,
Here we are.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
so
honestly
there you go.
thought
Those
it
are the
was
trailers.
right. I honestly thought that she was going to be Han and Leia's secret kid to Han, and that it was actually Kylo and her brother and sister. But
That would be
as Jack
interesting.
said, that is the reveal. You find out that she is actually Palpatine's granddaughter, and you know, maybe they didn't cover a lot into who the parents of her was, and Palpatine had a kid. Oh shit! And I understand they
No,
didn't
well, yeah.
touch
Like,
on
let's
that.
not get it twisted though. The Emperor has to he plays a big part
That's another
in
thing.
why her parents and her got separated.
Yes.
and it's shown through like kind of like the vague flashbacks from Force Awakens, just probably like more extended. It's like the same girl actress, even the little girl
Yeah.
from Force
Do you think
Awakens.
it might have been? It would have been a good plot point though to explain like who Palpatine was getting with, or if he harvested his seed and like impregnated some sort
Would
of
it
like.
have helped anything though by going into that? Except
Nah,
for
that'd be
wasting
interesting,
time?
though. I
It
mean-
would be interesting. I agree with that. Like it was something that would be like, well, at least you know.
Like who
But
is the
it-
Emperor shacking with? Like you want to know these
Hey,
things.
for all we know, he was like this is obviously he obviously had this kid well before he was ever like Palpatine or Emperor Palpatine. He was like,
Well, no, he was still still a Sith
he
Lord
was-
the whole time.
no,
I
he
mean,
was, but this is what I'm saying. Before, I guess his Samuel L. Jackson, he's now fucking Emperor.
So you're saying he?
So like back when he was, a young, on the Senate doing his thing, he probably had some women left and right. Who knows? What guy? He's not a Jedi. It's not like he can't bear children.
Very true.
know. There's too many inconsistencies. I wish they'd fleshed out the parents, be like, because the whole way they explain it is they're just like, there's like, parents were good, parents want to protect Rey, they leave her on Jakku to protect her from Palpatine. That's it. You don't get anything else. You just see a couple flashbacks. I think you see the flashback again from Last Jedi, where the parents are like, you see for like a split second like.
The ship leaving.
Yeah, the ship leaving, and then you see Rey like with some sort of figure holding her while she's screaming, asking for her parents.
Yeah.
But they never really discussed the parents. Like,
And
I think it would be cooler if she was just like harvested, like Palpatine just like had nut in a vial, and then they like impregnated some like sort of like what do they call those, surrogate? Like they had a surrogate mother, and that's Rey. I think that would have been a lot neater instead of having.
It would have been a pretty dark background too.
But I just think you just kind of would have, with trying to wrap everything up, it just would have brought up more questions with something like that. And now, granted, there are questions in this, but they're not important questions. Like, granted, yeah, so Palpatine had a son, he had a daughter. All right, who gives a fuck about the Palpatine son?
Family is very important in Star Wars, though, so I disagree.
I think
not
well,
after Last Jedi anymore.
Well, apparently
this movie kind of gets you
Apparently
tongue-tied
not.
because so much happens in its runtime because it tries to be 3 different movies in one.
I think it's ultimately, like you said, it's trying to course correct itself from the shit Last
It spends
Jedi
like the first
threw
half
upside
of the
down.
movie spends itself trying to be like a completely different movie from the second half. It's like a big galactic space quest in the beginning.
Not really.
I don't know. I felt like it was a
didn't
little
see that.
disjointed.
I didn't see that as much. I mean, that we had the set goal for the whole time. They need to go to the Sith planet that's been like uncharted. The only way to get there is using one of those Wayfinder things, the MacGuffins, as you speak of. So the whole movie was ultimately them trying. The core plot is them trying to find this waypoint so they can get to the Emperor and fucking kill him. So it's like. That was ultimately it, like, if you want to break it down to the core plot, but I wouldn't say that it was really just that, like, convoluted. There was shit thrown in left and right.
What
like
were some of the
fan
things you
service.
liked about it? Like, I personally like some of the bigger space battles. They looked really cool. You got to see, like, the old Y-Wings again in space.
Oh, dude, he's
like,
everything. He's A's, Y's,
A-wings.
X's, like, you
I like the old
all
dog fights.
the
They were
imagery
cool.
was very cool. The way the planets looked.
Yeah, lots of use of, like, greens and purples and
yeah,
like kind of a Guardians of the Galaxy like color to the tinge of the space.
a little bit, yeah.
also,
It definitely went a little brighter. I was surprised. Some bolder choices there.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
development of like force powers was also something I appreciate because they started doing it in Last Jedi. Actually, in Force Awakens too, with the force timing, as Josh likes to call
Force
it. But,
FaceTime.
I mean, like we had the Mandalorian episode that came out last night, episode 7, where they if this is another spoiler, just if
Yeah, all
whoever you are.
spoilers here, man. Go for it.
Baby Yoda uses his hand to heal one of the main characters in The Mandalorian, which coincidentally came out right before this movie.
Yep.
And a couple times throughout the movie, force healing is used. Well, actually, yeah, about 3 times. And we also have the introduction of like force teleportation, where if 2 people are force timing, they can like interact with the environment around the person that they're force timing with.
Yeah, because they can like hand things off all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
because Kylo
like,
takes the Wayfinder and then crushes it. And...
or not even the way. No, that they were together. It's when he grabbed the necklace.
Vader's helmet drops in
No,
that scene.
he grabs the.
Remember, Vader's helmet drops in that scene. That's when he knows that she's
Oh,
in
yeah,
the...
Yeah, no, exactly.
And he's like, oh, you're in my dressing quarters.
Yeah, he destroyed the Wayfinder when they were in the Death Star.
It'll be very interesting to see what other force powers they develop and wherever Star Wars ends up going.
So
yeah, because
let's
I mean,
talk
this
about,
whole
like,
thing's over.
how about the ending? Did you feel satisfied, like knowing that this was the final film of a 9-film series?
Well, just
Like they used, it's so beloved and loved by everyone around the world.
yeah, I didn't mind it. It was closure. There was definitely closure to it, like with everything with Luke and Leia's sabers, which we'll leave all that stuff really for them. But I liked all that. Let's not go with the very end. Let's not fuck with that. Let's let everyone else figure it out. But I was satisfied when those credits hit. I was happy with the shot and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty satisfying. I think the best parts of the film are where like you do get the callbacks, but at the same time, I think it yearns to be more original. It needs to have something like. To me, that's like my biggest criticism about it. I don't know. I'm a little disenchanted. I think Last Jedi's still the best.
See, I can't agree with that.
This movie is entirely fueled by nostalgia, and I mean, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I found myself smiling, like, cheek to cheek many times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, the best way I can describe it, other than, like, Game of Thrones Season 8, is, like, it's like a $10 hooker. It's, like, it's a lot of fun. It's, you feel kind of dirty about it. But I mean, overall, it's like a good experience. But once it was over, you feel a little disappointed with yourself. You feel a little disappointed with the movie. I mean, I don't know. The movie felt very rushed.
See, I had a feeling, and I said this before even going into it. Like somebody even asked, like, the critics and people are talking about this movie, and I feel like a lot of those people had their mind made up before even walking into it.
I agree.
So it's that, like...
I also feel...
Can people be a little more fucking open-minded when seeing a movie?
There's a lot of people who hate Last Jedi, and I think that's like the best one in recent time.
Yeah, you are definitely the minority in that one as far as the general public goes. I like Last Jedi too. I liked all of them. That's the thing. I can't say I liked them. I think they're all better than the prequels.
Like, this movie does feel like it does try to walk back some of the choices Ryan made on Last Jedi. And
which a lot of the fan base didn't like.
You guys know that when you see my Knives Out video, my love for Rian Johnson, just end it there.
And hey, in another video, you saw how I rant about about people who have these preconceived notions going into movies and how they should work out. Just accept it for what it is. Like, just enjoy the ride. Stop worrying about getting other things done. Just accept it for what it is and just enjoy it. Like,
fair enough. I mean, I would say it's definitely a good trilogy cap. It's all you're gonna get. Go see it in theaters.
Yeah, no, definitely go see it. Like, and even if you're like, well, if some people are saying it's not great, you're talking like epic fucking battles, like giant space battles. You gotta see that shit on a big screen. Like, you can't just go like, oh, wait for DVD. You will not get the experience you should. So I say see it. What do you say?
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Jack?
Yeah, Jack, what do you say?
I would say see it if you're a Star Wars fan, because if you're a Star Wars fan, it depends where you are on the scale of being a Star Wars fan. If you're like super hardcore, you're gonna be upset. But I mean, I'm fairly casual. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Probably, I said it's my second favorite of the new trilogy over Force Awakens. And yeah, if you're not a Star Wars fan, I don't know if you'll enjoy it that much because it's so heavily fueled by nostalgia for past movies. But I mean, I recommend it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, nostalgia sells today, so that's the main thing. So, yeah.
All right, that wraps it up, guys. I want you guys to check out, if you like retro gaming and Star Wars, the topic of our video. Our boy Ben Laurence does an awesome review of the new Arcade 1-Up Star Wars Trilogy arcade cabinet that actually has the playable uke, all that stuff. Fucking totally awesome.
Yes.
So we're going to end it there. You guys, thank you for watching. Keep watching. We'll see you next time.
Like, share, and subscribe, motherfuckers.
Ba, ba, ba.